In the January of 1974, a man by the name of Duncan Lunan published an article called Space Probe from Epsilon Bootis. It concerned a mystery surrounding long-delayed radio echoes, or LDEs, first reported in the 1920s. Mysterious echoes of the transmitter's voice, which were far too powerful to have been simple reflections from Earth. Experimenters studying all over the world found that their outgoing pulses were being returned to them with a delay of 3 seconds, as if they were being amplified and returned by something at the distance of the Moon, but definitely not the Moon itself. These delay times began to vary upwards from 3 seconds in increasingly complicated sequences, but with no variation in intensity, still indicating a single source amplifying and returning the pulses. Professor Ron Bracewell of Stanford suggested in 1960 that the echoes might have been rebroadcast by an unmanned probe from another civilization, a craft attempting to get our attention, and in 1972, Duncan would make an incredible discovery, successfully making a translation of the echo patterns. The variations of delay times appeared random, but Professor Bracewell himself had suggested that if indeed a probe, the first signal might be a star map. After plotting the delay times in chronological order, he found what indeed looked like a star map. Upon showing this to astronomers, it was recognized to have been a warped image of Epsilon Bootis in the constellation Bootis. Arcturus, the brightest star in the constellation, seemed to be out of place in the map, but on checking was shown at its plotted location within the map about 13,000 years ago. Predictably, the discoveries were treated as suspect and with great hostility by the academic community. Sadly, this pressure led to Duncan withdrawing his entire translation work and research. Did Duncan Lunan actually decipher the first message ever translated from an alien civilization? More research into this incredible echo anomaly is clearly needed, and the results of which released to the world.
Dr. Hermann Oberth, who pioneered rocket design during World War II, once cryptically stated, quote, "We cannot take the credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields. We have been helped." When asked by whom, he replied, "The people of other worlds." Additionally, according to Above Top Secret by Timothy Good and William Morrow, Oberth's fellow space pioneer, Wernher von Braun, echoed this mysterious reference, even including the existence of extraterrestrials, when he stated in 1959, quote, "We find ourselves faced by powers which are far stronger than hitherto assumed, and whose base is at present unknown to us. More I cannot say at present. We are now engaged in entering into closer contact with those powers, and within 6 or 9 months' time, it may be possible to speak with more precision on the matter." End quote. Just who were the people of other worlds that Dr. Oberth spoke of, or indeed these entities that von Braun referred to? With only Oberth's quotations, one could presume a possible reverse engineering of alien craft. However, with von Braun's more detailed exposé, this possibility seems to be excluded in favor of pertained actual assistance and contact with advanced beings. Many people also believe that an encounter with these beings, along with Third Reich craft built with their technology, was once encountered in an operation known as Operation High Jump. According to certain independent researchers, Richard E. Byrd, admiral of this operation, possibly encountered a hostile, formidable opponent, who he has claimed to have described as fighters that were able to fly from one pole to another with incredible speed. In reality, however, whatever Byrd's expedition experienced may never be fully publicly disclosed, as all reports, including Byrd's personal log entries, remain mysteriously classified. But the connections between these curious quotations, and indeed the rumored encounters by this classified operation, are certainly intriguing. Furthermore, Operation High Jump was originally organized by Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal. Interestingly, in 1949, Forrestal was sent to recover from a supposed nervous breakdown at Bethesda Naval Hospital. However, after allegedly ranting to staff about the Antarctic, UFOs, and an underground Nazi city, Forrestal was denied all visitors. Shortly after, he mysteriously died in a fall from his hospital room window. What did Forrestal know? Were his perceived delusional rants based upon reality? According to the legend of the German Vril Society, a secret remote viewing was held in 1919 at an old hunting lodge near Berchtesgaden. During this event, Maria Arsic, a self-proclaimed medium, presented her supposed telepathic messages, which she claimed to have received from an extraterrestrial civilization existing in the constellation of Taurus. It is reported that these messages contained instructions for building a circular flight machine. It is interesting to note that German Oriental scholars and occultists alike regarded such mystic teachings with complete seriousness, with well-documented, well-funded, diligent efforts put forth to discover and such individually proclaimed powers and their messages therein into viable technological realities. What happened in the Antarctic? Who were these people from other worlds that von Braun and Oberth spoke of? Did the Third Reich make contact with an alien or possible highly advanced, once ancient civilization, allowing them to engineer mystifying technologies? We find such claims, rumors, and fragments of evidence to support such possible realities highly compelling.
LES 1 and 2, the Lincoln Experimental Satellite 1 and 2, were essentially identical experimental communications satellites. LES 1, launched from Cape Canaveral on 11 February 1965, it accomplished only a few of its objectives. Apparently because of miswiring of the ordnance circuitry, the satellite never left circular orbit and ceased transmitting in 1967. LES 2, the twin of LES 1, fared much better. It achieved its planned final orbit on 6 May 1965. However, LES 1, the American satellite, abandoned in 1967 as a piece of space junk, has mysteriously began transmitting signals. An amateur radio astronomer in North Cornwall accidentally picked up the signal and, after cross-checking with various lists, has identified it as LES 1, built by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and launched in 1965, and has been drifting out of control ever since. Phil Williams from Nearview noticed its peculiar signal and suspects it's caused by it tumbling end over end. He believes every 4 seconds the solar panels become shouted by the engine. It gives off a signal, a particularly ghostly sound, as the voltage from the solar panels fluctuates, Phil says. It is likely that the onboard batteries have now disintegrated and something has caused the transmitter on 237 MHz, believed for decades to have been dead and lost to the vast emptiness of space, to mysteriously start up again. Phil says it's remarkable to think that electronics built nearly 50 years ago, 12 years before Voyager 1, and long before microprocessors and integrated circuits, is still capable of working in the hostile environment of space. What do you think of the LES's mysterious signal? Has it been hijacked by aliens attempting to make contact? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.
The Cockno Stone is a large ancient rock located at West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. Measuring 42 feet by 26 feet, it was first discovered in 1887 by the Reverend James Harvey. Such a large stone, once sitting proud upon the surface, inevitably attracted people's attention for thousands of years. The stone features around 90 carved ancient images, considered to be one of the finest sets of ancient petroglyphs in the world. It was reburied in 1965 by archaeologist Ludovic McClellan Mann, who decided to bury the massive slab under several feet of soil to protect it from damage and to prevent people from adding their own modern carvings to it. In 2015, it was partially re-exposed for investigation during a 3-day dig, and a more complete re-exposure followed a year later. So far, archaeologists cannot agree on what is exactly depicted on the massive slab, yet the images are clearly strange. Often when you discover that specialists cannot come to a joint conclusion, the subject is of a controversial nature. There is no consensus among archaeologists on the meaning of the intricate symbols found on its surface. Experts plan to digitally map the stone, and that data obtained could shine more light on its history, its purpose, and the people who created the artwork they believed lived more than 5,000 years ago. Dr. Kenny Brophy led the excavation and described the experience of seeing the stone as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Because of the array of markings on it, the Cocknow stone has been recognized as being of national importance and designated as a scheduled monument. Due to its unusual illustrations and the choice in shapes and placement thereof, many researchers have come to the conclusion that the Cocknow rock could have been some form of star map. The mystery of its strange decorations will undoubtedly persist for many years to come.
The Mughal Empire, an ancient Gurkhani empire that was located within the Indian subcontinent. Founded in 1526, a tremendous amount of information regarding this group of warriors has subsequently been unearthed over the centuries. A wealth of archaeological information which has offered a glimpse back into our distant past, revealing many things about this ancient people which, for a time, was lost in antiquity. However, although extensive archaeological exploration has unraveled many of the Mughals' mysterious existence, there remains a most perplexing enigma. In the 1980s, Smithsonian historian Emily Savage Smith embarked on a journey to acquire a set of perplexing ancient artifacts, now known as celestial spheres. Plotted upon the underside of a dome or hemispherical screen, the celestial sphere is a practical tool for astronomy even to this day, allowing the observers to plot positions of objects in the sky when distances are unknown or trivial. Most, as one would presume, display a primitive understanding of astronomical arrangements. However, some reluctantly revealed to the academic world, and since quietly archived away from inquisitive souls, have stumped all who have attempted to explain them based solely upon modern historical conformities. The majority of celestial spheres acquired can be catalogued into two distinct types: seamed spheres and their more elaborate, thus greatly more problematic counterparts, seamless spheres. Seamed spheres are, or were, made by molding two halves of the sphere separately and then soldering them together. The artisans and astronomers would then collaboratively engrave the surface. Seamless spheres, however, are another thing entirely. Up until Savage Smith made her discovery, it was thought by virtually all within the academic community, including metallurgists the world over, that all examples of hollow metal celestial spheres were of the seamed type. This owing to the long-held belief that creating seamless hollow metal spheres was impossible. As it turns out, it isn't. The most exquisite surviving example of a hollow seamless celestial sphere is one that is said to have been made by a Mughal metallurgical master named Muhammad Salid Tatawi in 1631. Although, conveniently, it is unknown just how he figured out how to make the sphere, or indeed fill it accurately with astronomical information we have only recently confirmed as accurate. It makes one wonder just how did he learn such a technique, if, of course, it was he who created it. With no evidence to suggest that the Mughals could have even cast the bronze needed to create the sphere, you have to wonder, just where did they get this information from? Were the ancient Mughals visited by a race of ancient extraterrestrial beings? Did they discover a relic, an artifact, left by a vastly more ancient lost civilization which they claimed as their own? Unfortunately, the subject of seamless celestial spheres is little known within mainstream antiquity, and as such, in the few places they are discussed, the facts are often distorted or even completely made up. They are most certainly out-of-place artifacts, which some have attempted to brush beneath a rug of convolution. We always perceive this method of concealment to be strong evidence of a conspiracy. Just who could have made the Mughal celestial spheres? And more importantly, how did they make them? Perhaps one day, we will find out the truth. Did they build it? Located upon a hill 600 meters above the Adriatic Sea in Albania, Amantia and its port Oricum are mentioned for the first time by Pseudo-Scylax in 330 BC. Yet there are specific features of this fascinating fortress, which is indicative of a now lost civilization. Polygonal masonry, advanced megalithic archways, among other ancient anomalies litter the site, just like that of Delphi located within Greece. Recognized as Greeks by the Theroradokai of Delphi, the inhabitants were allowed to take part in the Delphic competitions. The true builders of the original site, however, remains unknown. The massive, once impenetrable walls were built before the end of the 4th century BC, and literary sources report them as an Illyrian rather than Epirote or Macedonian foundation. However, any explanation as to how these ruins were constructed remains absent. Several monuments at the site still survive to this day. The fortified polygonal walls measured at over 2 kilometers long, a gated entrance, a temple now attributed to the Greek god Aphrodite, and several tombs in the northeastern necropolis. Additionally, like many other areas claimed as the work of the Greek Empire, an impressive stadium also still remains, built east of the ancient city on a natural terrace. Clearly indicative of a tremendous age, any unexplained architecture attached to the stadium, however, has now been lost, but the site of Delphi, the focus of later inhabitants' devotion, still possesses a polygonal floor. One of the reasons for the construction of the site, and indeed what we believe was a later re-inhabitation of its geographically strategic position. Amantia occupied an important defensive position above the Alus River Valley to the east and overlooked an ancient route to the coast and Bay of Alan. Although, like many other sites in the area, they are claimed as Grecian relics, any explanation as to how these feats were achieved remains unexplained. Thus, we feel any continued attribution to a known ancestor can be argued as inaccurate. It is a site which we find highly compelling. Polygonal masonry is undoubtedly a top trump argument, along with tool mark patterning, and indeed pyramidal and other structural forms which can be found across the globe, which prove there was not only once an ocean-going ancient civilization, but a worldwide, highly advanced superpower who once dominated the Earth. The proof is there for all to see, yet en masse, how they incorporate these proofs into their critical decision-making faculties is still up for debate. Yet, regardless, this proof of their past capabilities are still on display the world over, a duly awarded testament to their building prowess. Although many have attempted to explain these stones, some claiming they are of artificial or geopolymer origins, others claim they are somehow a reformed rock from a plaster of Paris-type constituent of the original stone itself. Some even claim a plant was responsible. Any definitive answer as to how these stones were shaped and placed, or indeed any recreation of these claimed methods, elude us to this day. A lost technology from a now lost, yet once highly advanced ancient civilization. Cusco, which translates as the City of the Puma, holds some of the most exquisite and best preserved polygonal masonry to be found anywhere. Home to the famous 12-sided stone, something which many are not aware of, however, is that it is also home to dozens of carvings and structures which were intended as artistic masonry renditions of animals, one of which, namely the puma. Academic hypothesis suggests that these creations were built by the Inca to once form the boundary walls of an ancient temple. Yet, like the countless other areas we explore here on our channel, any explanation as to how the walls were constructed, or indeed why pumas and other animals were incorporated into this enigmatic stonework, is absent from all and any academically accepted historical description of their origin. We feel that these structures were built for a reason, even stretching as far as Egypt, present as casing stones on the pyramids of Egypt themselves. They wanted future man to witness this stonework, built to last and to remain immovable. It is as if they were trying to tell us something about their existence, and indeed the true history and perhaps future fate of mankind. We find Cusco's puma, and indeed the lost knowledge itself, highly compelling. We recently came across a most curious artifact, one which has been claimed as having once been found, just like a handful of other exquisite objects we have previously shared, within a lump of ancient coal. It is a once smelted, solid iron recreation of a face, whose owner could have lived an unimaginably long time ago. With the claim written by John D. Morris, Ph.D., quote, "I was recently contacted by an older lady who grew up in the coal mining area of Appalachia. Her ancestors, having lived in the area for generations, her now deceased father was a miner who had once made a remarkable discovery embedded within a coal seam, a human face made from cast iron. Like most people, they had been taught that coal is far too old to contain any human artifacts. The miner was so proud and perplexed by his find, it eventually became a family heirloom and was simply named Man. As a large, heavy object, it was eventually used as an ornament, decades later becoming stored among his belongings. She distinctly remembers her father's story of its discovery and the care he had taken with this prized object, having recently rediscovered it among her father's possessions." End quote. The owner of this artifact has requested to remain anonymous and to withhold her identity. This makes the story even more appealing to us, as throughout our time researching these types of claims, and indeed artifact, we find that those who are pushing a supposed discovery, publicizing themselves while touring an object, are often in a search for a profit and recognition. Thus, as she is seemingly fearful of the artifact's disappearance, it would seem her story would align more with someone who possesses an item, not only of an extraordinary, incredibly controversial age, but also has a sentimental value, one which outweighs any idea of selling the item or even risking losing it from exposing its location. How old is the so-called man? Who could have made it, pouring cast iron into a mold, resulting in an exact duplicate of the man's face in the form of a three-dimensional mask? Could we be peering at the face of an ancestor once of incredible importance, one from a lost civilization, a lost time within our planet's history? We find such possibilities incredibly intriguing.